Welcome to Transforming the Times. This is your host, Suzanne Strisower, and I'm glad to be back with you for another episode. And this evening's segment is going to be with an amazing man who talks about a multiplicity of different types of healing. And so you're going to learn, he has 400 different types of healing in his toolbox. So we're going to talk about what led him there and how he got there. So it should be a fascinating segment. And for tonight, our astrology segment, I want to talk about Aries, because we're just moved into Aries. And so what is Aries energy? What is Aries going to be about for you?
Hey, and welcome to this Cosmic Impact segment. I am astrologer Dr. Michael Lennox, and this is the weekly Astro Alert for March 24th. Next weekend, another lunation. It is new moon time. Yay, seed planting and intention setting time. This is sort of if there was one go-to moment for me as an astrologer that if I was on the desert island of what I could talk about, it would be new moons. Why? Because we are beings of creating intention. That is what we are here to do. We're here to create our lives, and we do that with our minds. We cultivate with our hearts, but we set our intentions with our minds. When farmers used to plant, they used to plant their seeds during the new moon. There was reason for this. The sun and the moon were together in the sky, drawing all of the gravitational pull down into the earth. That meant that the water and all of the energy was pulling down into the earth. That was when farmers would plant their seeds, because that was the direction that the energy was moving in. Then during the full moon is when all of the energy is being pulled out into the crop. That's when harvest would happen. But you understand that there was actual technology around this. And so we do the same thing with the seeds of our minds. The intentions that we set are something that we do during the new moon. And you can see right here up in the chart that sun, S-U-N and M-O-N, that's the sun and the moon, are in the same place in the sky. This happens on Sunday of next weekend at 10:45 a.m. Again, that is Pacific time, so calculate for your time zone that you live in. This new moon is in the sign of Aries. Aries is the first sign of the zodiac. It's the startup sign. It's the me first, here I am. It's the ram that gets things going. You know, I'm subject to hyperbole, so I don't know if this is really true, but if there were to be the most important new moon in a year, it would be the Aries new moon. It's the one that sort of kicks off springtime and movement and possibility. So you definitely want to be as aware as you can this coming weekend during the new moon energy. What am I choosing to create with my life? What do I want to have occur? What am I aligning my heart and my mind towards bringing into my consciousness? Now, the week that builds up into this new moon is kind of significant, especially in the area of Mercury. Mercury is all over this week. So is Venus. Now, what's interesting to me about this is that Mercury rules the mind, Venus rules the heart. We have it a little bit backwards in our modern world. We're sort of oriented in our minds, and we kind of think of our hearts as secondary. We don't want to do that anymore. We really want to reorient ourselves so that we are living in our heart space, our ability to kind of feel into, slowly and with breath and stillness, what feels right for us. And then we want to use our minds to simply guide and navigate. Turn left, turn right, don't forget your sweater, it's cold out. That's about all you ever want your mind to do. The heart is really where all of the juice is. And during this week, you've got a huge number of Mercury transits. A transit means Mercury is activating with another planet. There are about 6 of them this week. That's a calibration. That means the mind is recalibrating. And if you're doing your consciousness work and your spiritual practice in a diligent sort of way, then you're already setting yourself up to drop into the heart as your primary mechanism for moving about the world. And so all of these Mercury transits that happen on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday of this week week are that opportunity to let your mind sort of shift and change and recalibrate for the beautiful Saturday and Sunday Venus transits that are occurring. Now, these I'm going to talk about with a little bit of specificity. On Saturday, Venus is going to trine Mars. Venus rules the heart, Mars rules the body. Now, I'm not really talking about the physical body, although that's true. Mars does rule the physical body. It's the idea of how am I embodying my life? And if Venus, the archetype of the heart, is working harmoniously, a trine, with my embodiment, it's a wonderful heart-open moment where I'm actually getting to walk my talk as someone who lives in the heart center. Venus is also going to do something simultaneous very quickly with this trine to Mars, the embodiment planet. She's going to square Saturn. Not so pleasant, but really important. Saturn is the karmic teacher and the responsibility planet, the one that says you've got to do a good job at living life. And Venus, the heart, squaring Saturn says, uh-oh, I'm going to come up with an obstacle that might keep me out of my heart center. And this happens just in time for the new moon moment on Sunday, where we get to plant our seeds of intention for the next cycle that's coming. So have at that on Sunday morning. If you want to know more about my work, go to michaellennox.com, and you can check out all the other good, yummy things that I offer, and check in next week with the Cosmic Impact section of this wonderful show. See you next week.
This is an interesting opportunity for you guys who are Arians at this time, and particularly with all the other aspects going on in the sky. So you'll have some interesting things to look at and to watch and to enjoy. And if you want more information, you'll be able to find it on Streaming for the Soul. And I'll also have some resources for you on the Streaming for the Soul Facebook page. So there will be plenty more where that came from. And my conscious causes for this week are Brain Injury Awareness Month. Now, interestingly enough, every month has hundreds of causes and hundreds of different designations. And so each segment that I do, I've picked causes that relate to the topic so that you can plug in to a cause, even if it's not my show topic, but you can get involved with them. So the first one is the Brain Injury Awareness Month. And this is where people actually have, whether it's a brain injury from an accident, could even be playing football, to traumas like in car accidents, and how you help people who have been brain injured, what you need to know to actually help them. And then there's National Chronic Fatigue Syndrome Month. And the thing that I'm so excited about having my guest with me tonight is that he has gone down this road. He's gone through all these different illnesses and diseases. And so if you're a person suffering from chronic disease syndrome, or you know someone who's suffering from chronic disease syndrome, he may be a person to help you. So this segment today, Alchemy of Healing, can help you get to those places in some kind of interesting way. And finally, today is World Tuberculosis Day. And so the reason I put this up is, again, it's on the show topic is healing, but it's also how is it that we eradicate tuberculosis? And not unlike what the Rotary did with polio, the goal here is to eradicate tuberculosis. And so how do we do that? And how can you do your part in that? So another piece of Transforming the Times is for all of us to do our part. And my eco-celeb for this week is Will I Am. And the thing that I think is really interesting about what Will I Am did is that he partnered with Coca-Cola. And I appreciated that they partnered with a hip-hop artist to actually start doing recycled materials through his company, EcoCycle. And so what they do is they take recycled materials and they make T-shirts with that logo, they make headsets, they make bags, they do all kinds of interesting things. And so I think the thing that's important for me is whatever the cause is, how can we support it? How can we be present to that? How can we expand it? How can we further it? How can it become more global in some way that makes a difference? And again, transforms the times. So I'm thrilled that he is my celebrity for this week. And I want to go and just jump right into our interview with my dear friend, Dr. S. Ben Tsvi. I want to welcome this guest as a new friend and also to say to all of you watching this show that moment by moment things can transform in your life. So my guest today is actually going to be starting another television show on Streaming for the Soul in the coming months called The Alchemy of Healing. And when he was 4 years old, he had the really interesting distinction of being someone who could project or know when people were going to be crossing over. So in some of my other segments, we've been talking about people having crossed over and talking about that. In this segment, we're actually talking about him telling people when they're going to die. Not something that most people want to know. However, the other side of that is that when you do know, you can do something about it. Now, you might think he's a woo-woo kind of guy, but he was actually a medical examiner for the state of California. So he has credentials, he's a chiropractor, he has 5 doctorate degrees in a variety of different subjects, including chiropractic, law degree, and numerous other ones. And he's traveled all around the world on his own healing journey after having died twice. So he's died and come back, and his journey now is actually to share with people how it is that you can heal yourself from just about anything, and in some of the most exotic ways, which is why I wanted to have him on the show with me today, because he's done some extraordinary things. And now his gift of those 408 different types of healing techniques that he's gone through, experienced, and learned, he is going to be sharing over his next segments on his own television show. And so we're going to be talking about a few of those and his own healing journey. So today I want to welcome to my show Dr. S. Ben Tsvi. Come say hello.
Hello. How are you, Suzanne? It's nice to see you in person. I've seen you on the radio, but now it's our turn to be together.
It's absolutely our turn to be together. And I'm thrilled that you are evolutionary kind of guy that you are, and just all of the things that you've done and the commitment that you have to humanity and healing and well-being for people. So what I want for you to do, Scott, is that a lot of people are going to have no idea about the journey that you've taken, because you're a very normal person with some, as Carl would say, superpowers. And so those have played out in your life in different ways, and they've actually evolved over the years. So from knowing when people were going to die, what was that like? I mean, as an intuitive, I've actually told people, you need to not do this, because if you do it, catastrophic things can happen. So I advised them and guided them for happy endings. What was that like for you where it wasn't so happy an ending?
Well, at age 4, in a Jewish household, which this was not commonplace, everybody would go poo, 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 poo. My grandmother said to my mom one time, she didn't know I could hear her. She was speaking both in English and Yiddish. This kid worries me. Oh my gosh, what are we gonna do? The classical oy vey. It became commonplace for me till about the age of 15, when it suddenly stopped as much as it had started. The challenge was that people would step back and be afraid. They didn't want to be around me.
It's a huge uncertainty, though, Scott. You have to understand that most people are afraid, they're fearful, and let alone fearful that much more. Because, oh my God, where does he get that from? Is that really going to happen to me? Now what? So out of that, what was, I want to say, the empowerment that you gave to people? Like if you knew that about someone, what was that like? Where did that take you? Where did you go? And how did that help somebody, or?
Didn't. I'll use 3 examples. My Aunt Rose and Uncle Larry. It's the one that started me on this whole traveling experience. I began to get a vision of my uncle. He was sitting right there. And I began to draw. And then as a little kid, I really had a wonderful talent for drawing that seemed to vaporize somewhere later on in life. But every time I drew Uncle Larry, 7 days later, he died. And every time I draw anybody, they seemed to die within 7 days. Same thing with his wife, which died about a year later. That did not go over well with the family and my brothers and sisters, let's face it.
Scary. You would have been one of these people.
Exactly. That's what they did do to me, is the sign of, that really goes over well. It's
right.
Across with the Jewish family. The other ones, different things occurred. I would know about things around people. I could see things around people. We would see a glow. Oh, that glow was in front of the TV screen now. But we would see things around them, and I could tell them what was happening. They were sad, or they were going to get going over. I would see a dark aura going around them. If something was gray or brown, I knew something was happening serious. But if it turned black, I knew they didn't have long to go. And traditionally...
So it was the energy in the person that was manifested that you were watching, that you were just really recording and talking about and actually saying something about. Okay. So in that frame, as a psychic, as an intuitive, as a healer, and certainly you're going to be doing a lot of work with other healers and psychics and intuitives on your show. One of the things that I've always said is if you have a gift of sight, it's to help people see and shift reality. So from understanding that, where is it that you then take that to help people make whatever shift they want to make?
Before I could help other people, at the very beginning, I had to help myself. My self-worth was kind of put it back. I mean, I didn't know what to do. People didn't want to be around me. Brothers and sisters thought I was crazy. My mother's going to take me to a psychiatrist. But later on, I began to realize I could use these gifts and talents. When people would write their name for me, I could get energy from it, and then I could share that. And how they were going to use it was going to be different than I would. And as a kid, I have this ego. I'm trying to learn to be who I am.
But you're giving your gift
to other
sort
people.
of spontaneously in real time.
Right. And I would do that, and I would share with that. I remember one happening, 7th grade. I began to have the kids all started to come over to me, and they would give me a sample of their handwriting, and I began to tell them a future that would be a possibility for them.
Nice. So, Scott, in that journey, I mean, I think the marvel for me is that when I interviewed my executive producer in an earlier segment, we talked about that he kind of knew where he was going his whole life, too. Do you feel like you knew you were going to be a healer from back when and then went into becoming a chiropractor and everything else has unfolded?
I sort of knew that I was going to be something in the medical profession. I didn't know what, where, or how. I was trying for one place, but the universe took me to another place. But it was always about helping people. Even as a kid, I knew my reality was about helping people. I also knew at this time that I was here because of my mom and dad. I knew that my mother and my father I had specific contracts with, and that I was in this reality with them as their child because of something that was uncompleted in a past life where they were my children. Mm-hmm. And so even as a kid, I knew that I was a little different. And
I think it's important, you know, Scott looks like a normal person, and lots of people have gifts and talents, and some of you may, watching the show, may have those same gifts and talents and wonder what to do. And so what we're talking about is really the journey of one's essence and its expression. And so this is part of that in the beginning segment of these interviews. And so that led you into chiropractic work, right? You became a chiropractor as the natural evolution of that professionally?
First of all, I hurt myself. I hurt myself lifting a garbage can when I was about 13. You know, you pick it up wrong. And my mom took me to her chiropractor. And I began to realize when I was at the chiropractor's office, I felt more in tune with a natural form of healing than I had when I went to the medical doctor's office. And it was my chiropractor who actually guided me to becoming a chiropractor.
Wow.
Then when I got into it, I began to realize I had this intuitive ability to touch somebody and feel things, whether it was the chiropractic part or muscle therapy part, but I could feel things that were going on with the people that I was touching. So
then, in some ways, the work that you did as a child or the gifts that you brought in, they stayed with you, they evolved, and then they became what you did professionally, and then you expanded on them. You grounded them, 3D with the chiropractic, and then what?
I would start to do other things. I wanted to expand beyond the normal chiropractic, so they have other graduate classes to take. And I wanted to do it in a different way. At first, I went into the medical legal field and became a medical examiner. I went first overseas, then came back and applied for my license. Went to court. I thought that was great. I had a big ego. I was getting to be,
a big shot.
Yeah. And which, you know, the higher you are, the harder
farther you're going to fall.
So I went to court and began to realize that there was a hierarchy of who they would listen to and who they wouldn't. And because I was at that time, only a chiropractor, and a medical examiner who was a chiropractor was rare. There was only 15 of us in the whole state. They weren't going to listen to me the same way. They didn't have the same level of respect. And I also began to realize that the truth had nothing to do with the law. Mm-hmm. It's all about who had the bigger checkbook, who had the better attorney. It had nothing to do with the truth. And that began to make me realize there was more to reality than what I thought I wanted. And so I was beginning at that point to be told divinely, you got to go another way. And if I wasn't listening to it, they kept whacking me more from the other side because I was going the wrong direction with ego or greed.
So Scott, let me, so I think one of the things that's fascinating for people is to get inside of the world and the minds of beings who are intuitive, because everybody has that gift, but not everybody knows how to use it. So as you were kind of getting whacked, as you would say, or, you know, for me, it's downloads. What was that experience like? Was there a physicality to it? Was it in your dreams? How did that happen to you?
Before the near-death experience, it would come in the form of a quiet voice getting louder or a feeling. Later on, after the near-death experiences, it would come very loudly. A tap on the shoulder, a whack in the head. But what I meant by whack was it's different than a download. You understand being downloaded information. And sometimes during the near-death experience, you have a download. But this particular thing is a yes-no type of question and answer. You're going the wrong way. I'm your divine angel. You can't go that way. Sorry, I see somebody I wanted to go out on a date with. You can't go that way. No would be the answer. Just like you train an animal, a dog, the angels were sort of training me. You can't go the way that's not divinely guided for you. So the information I got came in different forms. Some was dreams. Some, as I was telling our guests here in the studio audience, came from being told, go walk down that aisle and a book would fall off the shelf. Mm-hmm. Some, I'd wake up in the middle of the night and I'd hear, go turn on the TV. And you'd turn on the TV and some question or concern I had about something would show up right then on an infomercial that was on, but it had nothing to do with the infomercial, it had to do with some information. Suddenly, I'd be told, go walk down the street. And there's somebody with a question or has need
So
for an
you'd
answer.
just be led.
Exactly.
Okay, so then some interesting circumstances befell you in your life. 2 near-death experiences. Only one of them you wound up in the morgue. So it got real serious. I mean, he didn't just have a near-death experience like some of us do where we can just dream it or we can meditate and go there. You had to wind up in a morgue. So in that kind of an experience, Scott, obviously, did you go to other realms? I mean, people are always curious about that. Did you go to other realms? Was it a download time? Because I know when I've left my body and come back, sometimes it's peaceful, and sometimes I've come back struggling to get my breath and try and just activate my body again.
Well, I had 2 of them. They were near each other in a way. They had different avenues of getting me to the other side. One was on the surgical table and one was because of the car. Both happened after I was a chiropractor. I was in practice. And they did more than download anything. How did it feel? The first thing I remember was looking down out of my body, at my body, and going, oh, that's what I look like. And the other thing was, boy, I feel so much better. That body is a mess. It hurts. And then I remembered seeing one, and this was when I was on the operating table. I met a being that was next to me outside my physical form and going, oh, my body's a mess. Can I go home now? And I wasn't mean going to my earth home.
Right.
And
you wanted to leave this dimension.
I was like, oh man, this is a mess.
Right, I'm done down here.
Yeah. And I heard, no, you can't go home yet. You haven't fulfilled your purpose and missions in life. You still have more work to do. That's been their favorite saying for me. I came in early, wanted to leave early, but they said, no, you have a job to do.
You're here for the long haul, like the rest of us.
And then the other one, they told me at one of these experiences, from this point on, you would learn to heal yourself. Mm-hmm. You would learn simple techniques to heal yourself and share that with other people. And that I would get information through dreams. Now, more of the dream stuff started to occur. And more of that intuitive ability I had as a kid began to increase. And it seems to be I'm always divinely guided in the right place for the right reason. So sometimes some of my physical challenges have occurred along the way, not only are here to make me more compassionate about what the patients are feeling, so that I'm one with those.
Right.
But it was also to help me understand that those types of things can be helped by these simple techniques. If they can help me, they can help other people. And it's all about helping other people, doing it without greed or ego, and living your divine purpose, which when I met
which
you.
I love, which is where we started.
Exactly.
So that's fascinating, Scott. So as, it just kind of baffles me because I've gone and done a lot of things myself over the years and been taken a lot of places. So in that journey, then you started, so you had a healing journey on the way back to get back to wholeness and actually to walking and having the level of functionality you do today, and you're in great shape now. But it took you on a journey through a lot of healers, and that's a lot what you're going to be talking about on your television show.
Correct.
And so tell me about the journey. The first one that I know that you've mentioned to me is Max Gerson, and what was that like? Because I'm sure people watching this are kind of fascinated and enthralled of, wow, this is an interesting kind of a journey. So tell us about some of those. Like, start with Max and tell us about what that was like.
Before we get to Max, you have to know, as part of a medical examiner, my job was to investigate. Is something fraud or is it something real? So I went into it actually skeptical.
And that's what I love about this, Scott. That's why there couldn't be a better person to do this show than you. I mean, that's the thing that's brilliant about this. I mean, at some other level, it's a cosmic joke. I mean, who but a more perfect person to do your show than you?
So that was put there for that divine reason. Some of my own challenges were my opportunity not only to get closer to source, but to investigate all these possibilities. And we talked about 408 of them, and that I've had the personal experience with. And the biggest thing, Max Gerson, was one of the first things. I won't talk about what actually occurred with the physical body and why I was with Max, but you can look that up on why Max Gerson is around. But I had gone to USC Medical Center at the time. They found something. I didn't want to go the standard route. I wanted to go a different way. So how things come to me is they just show up. Somebody showed up and said, hey, I think you would be interested in this. It's an all-natural way. It's a dietary approach. It's a vegetarian thing. They use enemas. They use juicing. So I went down.
And I think that's something that's really important to, in transforming the times. If your body isn't right, it means there's some things that need to be different, whether it's nutrition or, different mindset or any one of the numerous different things that can happen. And so that's what your show is going to be talking about, Scott, where you're actually going to start opening up and expanding all these horizons into places even I haven't gone. I mean, it's remarkable to me, the things that you're doing. So that was diet and helping people with a diet. And
that was at least the first one with diet. The second one was the primal diet, where nowadays I've gone a little bit farther. I actually eat raw meat. I eat like an Eskimo. I haven't eaten cooked food in over 11 years. So I eat raw meat, raw chicken, raw fish, raw almost everything you can think of.
So how does that work? Because I know when I first thought of that, I'm like, well, that's a little squeamish, although I take tartare every now and then. But carpaccio, how do you reconcile that with all the stuff that's going on, radiation, where do you go with that? Because one of the things that I've seen and really want this show, and I'm so grateful for your show, is to take the mystery and the conflict out of conflicting information, because you don't know. I mean, who do I know to trust, you or you? And kind of they all say the same thing, but they're not. How do you know?
Like we were telling our studio audience before we actually filmed today, is you can't go from your head, you got to go from your heart. And it was Eben Alexander or anybody, Prana Miller, who's had near-death experiences, they know that they can't come from the analytical side of who they used to be. They have to come from the heart side and feel what's right for them. The divine will give you the divine insight through the heart, the bottom of your heart. And from your human design, because you're into human design, and so am I, that we all have certain areas of definedness and not self. And you have to know where that not self is. So I use that part of who I know I am and that analytical mind to decipher what is me and what is not me. So for each person who's out there looking at this program, deciding, he's got this and he's got that, he's got this program and this thing, you really got to go how you feel. And if you don't know, and if you're a super analytical person up here and you're not into the heart, and you can't get that gut feeling, then you're going to have to experiment. And this is life experimenting.
So let's talk about that, Scott, because I was just thinking that it's like, and I've always felt that if I trusted my instincts, if I was sat with myself, whether it was my being, a download, my heart, my gut, if I just trusted myself and was whole, was not had any other agendas, it would all be good no matter what.
Yes.
So as you're doing all these different diets, is that kind of where you're at? It's like, okay, I've been told that, I feel that, I'm living there, and I'm owning that, and I'm just staying with it.
The first one was a feeling that the Gerson, even though it was a very good diet for certain types of chronic challenges, we'll call them, it wasn't good for other certain types of chronic challenges. And that analytical side of me began to realize that It helped me for about 2.5 years, but it wasn't everything I needed. I lost a lot of weight on that particular diet because my protein level requirements were higher than my food intake. And the feeling was, this is not right, I need something else. My bone structure was collapsing. I had 35 spinal fractures. I was having tremendous osteoporosis for a person who was 40 years old. I was aging prematurely. My hair started to turn colors, and I just couldn't function. So the knowingness was there. And then somebody showed up in my dentist's office, a lady who comes from the same ancestral area that my ancestors come from, Szabo, Hungary. And she said, I have a diet for you. I know it's going to help you. It was with Agnes van der Plants, the raw food guy who lived on an Eskimo diet, and he cured himself of bone cancer.
Wow.
So I went on that particular diet, and it's not an easy diet, eating everything raw. I mean, raw. Everything's dead and it's raw, but it's fresh. And you have to get used to it. But I noticed that after about 3 months, I could not go back to the standard cooked food. And I've tried, but I'll be in the restroom with an experience that you don't want.
Releasing it somehow.
Yes.
Okay, got it. So then, all right, so diet, you went down the diet road. And then what happened? So you did lots of different dietary things.
Right.
And then what was the next piece of that journey? So where I'm going is that I feel like you've had an evolutionary healing journey.
Right.
And that you've sort of progressed with this. So first was diet, and then what was the next component?
We moved into Hulda Clark and parasite therapies and Rife machines and all sorts of different things for that. I had been diagnosed with a rare form of mycoplasma fermentans, which, if you know the story about mycoplasma fermentans, it was actually invented from mycoplasma pneumonia by our certain government agencies who had the purpose of using this in warfare in the time when it was during the Cold War. And however it got out. But I ended up somehow with that version of it. So I investigated Clark, and Clark would do certain things. But each time along the way, I would go to these different healers who did certain things and were known for their integrative, alternative, complementary things. And it would work for a certain part, or to a certain portion, or to a certain time, and it would stop functioning.
And the thing I think that's so remarkable about, Scott, with everything you've done, is that it's kind of like your life purpose was really to bring the amazing array of healing techniques and technology to the planet. Because unless you were compelled, who in their right mind would have done that?
You have to be highly motivated.
Yeah.
And if somebody's going to tell you, they didn't tell me this till later, oh, I thought you'd be dead 5 years from that, 5 years ago. I went, oh, if I had known that now,
right.
If I'd known it then, I wouldn't have gone to that doctor. So my motivation was, don't listen to my doctors, listen to myself, listen
right.
to that intuitive ability that connects to source. And don't listen to what they want me to do to take these drugs. I have to tell you that most of my physical issues did not come from my near-death experiences. Most of my physical issues came from side effects from the medications, the steroids, the antibiotics that the doctors had given me in hopes to cure my one issue, but created something completely different down the road.
And I think you bring up a great point, Scott, and that is that we need to look complementary. And when I say complementary, it means both forms of medicine, and they both do brilliant things. So it's not one or the other, it's both, and then it's whatever works for you. And I feel like we're in an evolutionary period of time where we really do need to know much more about stuff. So that brings us to your television show. So tell me about your television show and how you're going to take this trek that you've been on to the big screen or the little screen.
Or the little screen. I think the big screen is from the near-death experience is even bigger, but it's basically taking all the experiences I've had and all the wonderful doctors and healers I've met along the way and saying, you helped me here and you helped me there and this person did this. And if it could do something for me, for a person that was written off several times, then it could help people, give them hope, help bring back their faith, instill some more belief, make them have the feeling of more courage to face whatever issues, and to remind them to have absolutely no doubts about their ultimate triumph in their complete healing. And this is that part that I'll bring into my show, our show.
Which I so love.
And that is, because it's not my show, it's our show. It's our executive producers' shows. It's our group
right.
show here
right.
at Streaming for the Soul. It is the realization that the ultimate ability to heal comes from Source. It is divinely guided by Source. And ultimately, you're on the timer from Source of whether you're going to heal in this lifetime or not. And ultimately, if we do, MDs, DCs, DOs, PhDs, dentists, practitioners of every kind and shape, if you're meant to heal, you will. If you're not meant to heal, you won't.
Or you find a different practitioner.
Correct.
And so I hope that that gives all of you watching us today the opportunity to go and realize that there's so many different ways you can heal, so many different opportunities, and that Scott is going to go and do an amazing job with bringing all these different techniques and technologies to the world in your show. And, you know, I want to wish you the best with that, Scott. I'm so excited. I can't wait to when that happens.
Thank you. Can we share how this all came about, by the way? Because it was a divinely guided reaction that we ended up on doing this with Carl Fink, our executive producer, and Dave Rosen, our other executive producer, and you, our third executive producer.
I think, yes, I do want to share this story, and I'll tell you why. Because I think this is synchronicity at its finest. I had the intention to say I was ready for television after doing radio. I was ready to do it bigger, have a bigger transmission. Now to have the energy of my being, of light coming through and then moving out into the world in the visual, not just the audio. And so this was that. And then when Scott and I met, because he coincidentally called me to be on my radio show.
So, I wasn't actually calling you for me. If you remember, I was calling you because I was volunteering to do
the
PR for Bruno Gruning's Circle of Friends.
That's right. And then I said, I want you because you just knew too many people and too many things.
Yeah, you said, your story is really interesting, and I didn't call you about my story.
That's right. That's right. So again, for all of you watching this, I hope you see what synchronicities are possible in your life. And so out of that, we had a quick conversation, and I just quipped to Scott. I said, I want to go do television. I'm ready for television now. And to which he said, you need to know Carl Fink. And within a month and a half later, there you have it. We have a television show. So it's the remarkable elapsed time that we have now. And so for all of you watching and listening, you can also heal that way. So tell us about the name of your show, Scott.
It's going to be called Alchemy of Healing TV. And even though we'll have our own website, it'll actually be linked to streaming for the Soul TV.
Right.
And we will have healers from Brazil, Argentina, Bolivia,
Israel.
Of course, we have quite a few people coming in from Israel. We'll have them from India and Japan. We'll have them Skyped in. Our first show, of course, is your mutual friend with me, Dr. Bernie Siegel, who was my instructor in school and actually did my graduation ceremony for us.
Right. And I want to also say that Scott's doing some really interesting things, like ozone therapy in your blood, different diets, a telepathic woman who communicates with people from the other side. Just remarkable people. Some of them I've interviewed on my radio show, and they're just amazing. They're full of compassion, love, help, healing. And I think that's the other thing, is that your show is going to give people hope and wisdom.
That's the hope. We want to go one step above that to faith and belief, because it's been proven if you have faith and belief, anything can be possible. You can literally move mountains.
And I want to take that a step further past faith and belief to knowing. So that when people are with you on your show, it's about knowing the truth. It's about being able to live from that truth. It's about being able to transform the times because you know it and you have the courage to embody it.
And that's how I called you Mishpacha. I knew that when Carl Fink and I met, that you were extended family from the heart. This extended family from the other side, they would call us pods. We came down for a reason. We came down for specific lessons to work together. And we came here to change our reality.
Right. And some of you watching this may actually feel like, oh my God, this is my family. You guys are speaking my language. And if that's true, definitely reach out to us. Come talk to us. Come find us. Because this is about the gathering of the tribe. It's not one or the other of us. It's about all of us coming together. And in Transforming the Times, that's what my show is about. And so I'm going to encourage you to do that with the people that Scott interviews on your shows, people that I interview on my show, getting in the vibe and going for the ride. So however that is and however that you want it to be, take full advantage of it. So Scott, I want you, before you go, I want you to do either Einstellen or Mishpacha, whichever seems like it's more appropriate, because I want our audience to really see how some of this feels and works and is?
All right, one of the main spiritual techniques that I use is a technique that came from Germany, from a man named Bruno Gruning while he was alive until 1959. He healed 30,000 people at one time, and he didn't take credit for it. He said, I'm just a conduit, God works through me. So this technique called einstellen means tuning in to source. It's a verb, it's an action state. So in order to do this einstellen, and then to tune in, you're saying to what? What are we tuning into? We're tuning into the source, this ring of energy called the Heilstrom or healing stream, the Holy Spirit that's around the planet. That's that portion of God that exists around here that animals and plants take in naturally and that human beings have forgotten. That would be the third eye connection to source. So some healers know how to do it automatically. People who do pranic healing understand they breathe this in. For the average person that has no idea or knowledge, it's very simple. I can't really sit flat-footed here because these stools make me feel like a little 3-year-old on top of a way above the ground. But the person would take off their shoes.
Okay, hold on, Scott. We're going to get everybody to do it with us.
Okay, we have a live audience here. So.
This is like really happening. So if you want to participate in this with us, now's the opportunity. Again, we're doing a transmission. And so if you're watching this show, take advantage of this.
So take off your glasses, take off your watches, put your feet flat on the floor, put your palms up. And of course, we'll have this in greater detail in one of my own shows when we have the doctors from Bruno Gruning's Circle of Friends and the MWF, the Medical Scientific Group, with us later in March. So we're going to do this later again, but simple technique. Bruno Gruning was considered a saint. He didn't do the healing. He was just a conduit for God. He connects the source to God, whatever you call God, Heavenly Father, God the Son, whatever. When we do this, there's 2 simple sentences, and we're going to stay with those at the moment. I'll add a couple later. We're going to calmly have calm and quiet in the area. You can't connect the source if you're not calm. If you'd like to play some music, I'll say classical music because it's the best vibration. You'll play it in a minute here, and you're going to do this for 10 to 15 minutes, twice a day, say 9 o'clock in the morning, 9 o'clock at night. You can do it anytime you want, any other time, but this is what we're going to do. We're going to call this divine prayer meditation. That's not a prayer nor a meditation. It's simply...
It's a way to talk about it.
Yes, it's so people can understand and get by. It's really connecting to source and asking. So we're going to take 3 deep breaths in. We're going to call this the 6-3 breath, thanks to my friend Julianne, who taught me this. You're going to breathe in for 6 seconds. We're going to hold it for 3. We're going to exhale for 6. We're going to hold it for 3. Take another deep breath in. And we're going to do this 3 times. Now, the word aloha means by welcoming or tuning into breathing. And once we all align ourselves with breath, we're on that same breath, we can connect much better. And now we're simply going to ask God to send us down the healing stream.
Nice.
And second, we're going to ask our friend Bruno. Those people that knew Bruno yet, they're going to look up his website, brunogruning.org. And we're going to ask Bruno, this saint, to be our friend and connect us to God's healing stream. So again, we ask God to send us down the healing stream. And we ask our friend Bruno Gruning to connect us to God's healing stream. Now, when I first did this for the audience behind the camera, I didn't connect so well. I really was super analytical. I couldn't get my brain to shut off or my mind to quiet. And the only thing I could do at this point, it was hold my breath as long as I could till my brain and my mind shut off. So I'm going to repeat this 3 times just so I can start to feel tingling in my feet and my hands and my head, or any other feeling anywhere in my body.
I'm already feeling it. It's already moving.
So as we again ask God to send down the healing stream, and we ask Bruno Gruning to connect us to God's healing stream, I'm going to add 2 other special sentences that I learned, so to speak, the hard way. And that was, we asked for complete healing and rejuvenation and divine guidance and direction for our bodies, our affairs, our lives, and our minds. And then we're going to say thank you to God.
Perfect.
And thank you to Bruno for being this connector conduit to God.
Okay.
And for the next 10 to 15 minutes, we're going to relax with this music and see what happens. Now, if you remember, and I know we're getting near the end of the show, you have to ask. It's not only when you start to feel it. Once you start to feel it, whether it's third eyes, hands, or feet, you want to ask. The divine cannot give to you unless you ask. Part of working with the angels or the divine directly. So now we ask. We ask Bruno Gruning to connect to God and ask that Suzanne's show enlightens the world, brings that which is necessary for here. It's done easily and effortlessly and everywhere. And that no matter what the times bring in March, April, and May, they bring the divine through, and you can help them through your show in every way. We can ask the divine for anything, from a parking space to making something for food, or making sure that something's on the shelf when we get to the marketplace.
Right.
We can make sure that we're safe when we drive. We can make sure that we're always alive to fulfill our purpose and missions and our contracts with the source and each other, of course.
So, Scott, I want to thank you for that process and that opportunity. And for all of you that have been watching this show, if you want to go and do this in an extended way, you'll be able to pick up the video, audio, and music with Scott doing this on another feed on Streaming for the Soul, which you can just click on. So streamingforthesoul.com will take care of that. And he'll be doing more of that on his shows, so you can get into a rhythm and a pattern and really do whatever you want to do with that, and use it for your own healing. Let it go into your heart. Let it seep through your soul and your cells to do whatever it needs to do to help you heal, expand, grow, and transform the times. So, Scott, thanks for being on the show with me today.
Hey, it's my pleasure. I look forward to our show going on and having you as my guest the next time that we meet.
That'll be great. That'll be great, Scott. And I can't wait for Alchemy, the Alchemy of Healing to go live.
Thank you. And thank you for helping us get this whole thing started.
So we have the privilege of having, as things happen when you're doing transformational work, of having someone that just happened to show up today who is doing transformational work with animals and people who can't speak for themselves sometimes, who are brain injured, brain damaged. And she just happened to be here, and she's going to be a guest on Scott's show, Alchemy of Healing. But I wanted, since she was here, to take the opportunity, since it is Brain Injury Awareness Month, to go and let you meet her and for her to say a few things to us. So today I have with me Colette St. Clair, and she is an amazingly gifted woman and channel, although I don't know that she would use that word, but she's an intuitive and telepathic, and she has the ability to hear and connect, and we're going to talk a little bit about that today, hear and connect with people who are brain injured, brain damaged, animals, and people from the other side. And just as a little aside, as we were in between segments, she actually was talking about an elephant that I had been connected with, and oh God, it made me go there again. An elephant I was connected with in a past life, and I could actually feel her here in the studio with us. So it's amazing what's possible. So Colette, I want to welcome you to the show today.
Thank you very much. I'm very surprised.
Spontaneity is the name of the game. So in terms of that, talk about, so in the format I have the show, in the beginning, so how did you become telepathic? How did you connect with the animals and people on the other side? And how did that happen?
My first awareness of it happening was back in 1989. I was living in London, and my dog, Peanut, a dachshund, was living 5,000 miles away with my family on another continent. And age 5, she died overnight. There was nothing that, nothing expected.
Seemingly wrong.
Correct. And I woke up at 2:45 a.m. Greenwich Mean Time, crying and sobbing, knowing she had died. And my immediate reaction was, must have been a nightmare. But instead, I saw her in my mind. I felt her literally as though I was holding her. And I started hearing her talk. And she said to me that she died. She didn't go into details about how, but she basically wanted to reassure me that she was okay with her premature passing. But one thing that I could never forget, she didn't let me forget, was she's the one who said to me that I had an actual gift of communication. This was 89, and I was working in finance in London at the time. But as a child, I was very clairsentient, not only with animals, but with people too. So clairsentient means I knew their truth just by experiencing it in my body.
So you could feel them.
Absolutely.
And you got the vibe, and then you knew what that meant. So it just kind of went through you.
Yes, there were times when I could actually hear their thoughts translated into clear words, but I never gave it too much attention when I was a kid because everybody in my family poo-pooed it, of course.
Like
and that's
many
when
of
it,
us.
Yes, yes, and that's
Like
when
many of us.
That's when it began in '89, and I only started to devote more time and energy to any form of intuitive insight or telepathy since 1994, which slowly but surely developed. And so I would communicate with animals, and I also communicated with people who'd passed on. They actually reach out to me, not the other way around. At first, it was quite a troubling experience because I didn't quite know what I was dealing with. And some of the spirits were sometimes imposing, never abusive, thank goodness. But in 2003, I realized that if animals can communicate, living animals, and if people who no longer have a physical body or brain can communicate, then I really knew that people who were alive but locked in their minds could do so. We're covering children with autism, Down syndrome, seniors with Alzheimer's, dementia, cerebral palsy, coma, stroke victims.
Oh, I love that. So again, transforming the times, you really can connect. And I know this to be true. I reached out to my little brother when he was in a coma, and he told me, you need to come help me. So,
Absolutely.
yeah. So, so talk about what it's like in the short time that we have, Colette, of what it's like to reach out and connect with someone who does have some kind of brain injury, brain damage of the type you've just mentioned. Because I know you're going to talk about that in depth on Scott's show, Alchemy of Healing. But just give our listeners a snapshot of what that's like to connect with people who are here but not communicating. I have to tell you, it was so troubling to me when everything happened with Terry Schiavo for just this reason. I mean, I could feel Terry Schiavo. And when all that went down, I was not happy. So how is it that you communicate with people who are in, quote, a vegetative state?
First, may I reassure you and everybody, Terry came to terms with what was going on. And she was in acceptance. She had preferences, but she accepted the outcome. What it's like for the other person who's locked in their mind, it's literally a godsend. There are few other words that can describe it. It is so troubling, frustrating, sometimes tormenting to have thoughts, to be aware, to be sentient, to be able to process. Sometimes the process is compromised or quite limited, but nevertheless, there is enough mental processing going on for anybody to have a connection to their world and their families, and not be able to show that in any way is very, very frustrating. God bless them. I don't know how they survive day in, day out. And I have so much empathy for anybody who's locked in their mind, be it a child with autism or Down syndrome or someone suffering frustrations of dementia, for example. I don't know how they do it.
You know, I'll tell you an interesting book as you're talking, it reminded me of a book from many, many moons ago called Johnny Got His Gun. And Johnny Got His Gun, it was a book, I don't know if any of you out there remember that book. It was, I'm going to say, from the 80s, and it was, I think, about a Vietnam vet. And he the war had meant he had no arms, no legs, and he was literally just laying on a bed. And so he's telling the story of his own experience of just being there as a slab of flesh with consciousness.
Right.
And that's what we're talking about. So I'm thrilled that you're going to take that and really expand on that and look at all the different directions that you can, and dimensions and ways you can connect with people when you're on Alchemy of Healing, because it's so important. And I think that a lot of times the sensing, the feeling, the being is totally missed. I've had people who are in the hospital in coma states, and yet when I walk in and be with them, they would tell me exactly what they need. And they know how to do that if you're there to listen. So I think it'll be great that you're going to actually teach people who are watching these segments how to actually do that with people, how to take people into that other world so that they can be with their loved ones, be with people, animals, people who have brain injuries and damage. And according to the research, 1.7 million people have some kind of injury or damage every year. So
I
it's
think
huge,
that's a very
so necessary.
small. I think that's a conservative number.
Very much so.
But it is really, really important to reach out to them and help them restore some sense of dignity, especially the seniors, and for the younger ones, hope.
Right. So if you have a website, Colette, will you give everybody your website before you leave?
This particular one is www.mentaltelepathyworks.com.
Fantastic. mentaltelepathyworks.com. So thanks for stopping by today,
Thank you
Colette.
very, very much.
It's amazing to meet you, and
Likewise.
Thanks
And
for
the
being-
elephant. Thank you.
so thanks for joining me today on Transforming the Times.
Thank you.
So I hope you've enjoyed this segment of Transforming the Times, and I hope you've seen for yourself some interesting opportunities for healing, for well-being that you may not have even considered, and for people that you know who need those opportunities, that you can bring them to the friends and loved ones that you have who might be needing such care and treatment, and in ways that you might not have considered. So I want to just let you know about my shows that are going to be upcoming. And next week, my guest is Dr. Michael Lennox, who you've met and who's been with me since this inception of the show, but this is the first time we get to spend some real time together. And then the next week will be Kathleen O'Keefe Canavis, and she is a 3-time breast cancer survivor, and she's also an amazingly gifted intuitive who used her own intuition to go and heal herself of breast cancer. Now think about the odds of 3 times breast cancer, twice stage 2, once stage 4, and that makes an amazing story. So she wrote a book called Surviving Cancer, Cancerland, The Intuitive Aspects of Healing. And the thing that's remarkable about this is that she chronicles her journey through cancer, through treatment. And it's riveting and it's compelling. And there was honestly times where I had to put the book down because it was just so intense. But the story is so real. And so for any of you that have any people that you know who have cancer, she's an amazing advocate for cancer. So that'll be a fantastic show. And then we're going to have Amy Lance, who does some amazing work with children, not children actually, but young adults, college kids. And she takes them and teaches them how to be conscientious public speakers, people who are out in the world doing things, making a difference, speaking up for their causes and their voices, organizing people, learning how to be leaders and create teams. So Amy will come and she's going to bring her kids. And then I want to do a segment on urban food forests, because as things are unstable and we'll think about the water in California and all the things that are going on, it would be nice that everybody understood how to grow their own food, how to have something sustainable. It's a way to support yourself and your family if all systems go down. And, you know, as you know from my first segment, I've done work with the preppers, and so I understand that. And so I want to give people a way through so that if we do have to shift, you all be aware of many opportunities. And I'm actually going to take you back in time 300 years in the southeast, and I'm also going to take you into the Middle East to a 3,000-year-old food forest. So that should be a fascinating segment. So I hope you've enjoyed this week's Transforming the Times, and you'll see that we have some great show sponsors, and I hope that if you're watching this and you feel like you've gotten value, that you are willing to come and join us and be a show sponsor, and to use and promote the show and use the services of the people who are show sponsors. So this is Suzanne Strisower of Transforming the Times. I hope you've enjoyed the show, and I'll look forward to seeing you again next week.